Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of university-level management science materials today from National Yangming Xiaotong University. And our mission is basically to decode how companies go from just surviving locally to absolute global domination.
Right, and it's such a perfect time to talk about this. I mean, we live in this era where you can, walk into a convenience store in Tokyo and pay your municipal taxes while buying a gourmet egg sandwich.
Yeah, or like ordering a McAloo tiki burger at a McDonald's in India. It's wild.
Exactly. But then on the flip side, you see these massive, deeply successful American retail giants like Walmart is the classic historical example here. They try to open up shop in Germany, and within just a few years, they have to completely pack up and flee.
Fleeing and losing billions of dollars in the process, yeah.
Right, billions. Just a complete failure.
And I think that paradox is exactly what makes these sources so compelling for you as a listener. Because the assumption is usually, well, if a business model prints money in the US, it should just print money in Europe, right?
You think so, yeah.
But the global graveyard of failed corporate expansions completely proves that that's an illusion. The companies that actually survive the jump, they don't do it by luck. They rely on these surprisingly predictable, deeply researched frameworks.
Yeah, and before a company can even dream of conquering the world, they have to have a rock-solid domestic strategy. And, that word strategy, it gets thrown around a lot as just a meaningless corporate buzzword.
Oh, totally. Synergy, pivot, strategy, all those words.
Right, exactly. But in management science, it has a very precise definition. Strategy is the determination of basic long-term goals and the deliberate allocation of resources to achieve them.
Right.
And the ultimate objective there is to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage.
Meaning you aren't just winning today, you've essentially built a system that ensures you'll keep winning tomorrow. You're maximizing shareholder value by outperforming your rivals over the long haul.
Precisely. But to do that, you have to really understand the battlefield you're walking onto. A company has to look at the outside world first.
Yeah, external analysis.
Right. External analysis. The materials emphasize frameworks like the PEST analysis, which is looking at the political, economic, social, and technological factors. It's kind of like the macro weather system for your business.
Like the climate you're operating in.
Yeah. And when Walmart went to Germany, they fundamentally misread that social and political weather. They didn't understand the strong local labor unions at all.
Right, and didn't they mandate smiling cashiers or something?
Yes, they mandated the cashiers smile like customers, which German consumers found culturally off-putting and kind of superficial.
Oh, man. So the macro weather is crucial, obviously. But the framework that really dictates the day-to-day survival of a business is Porter's 5 forces.
Oh, absolutely. This is a big one.
Because it forces a company to analyze industry rivalry, the bargaining power of buyers, the bargaining power of suppliers, the threat of substitutes, and the risk of new entrants. I always like to think of Porter's 5 forces like defending a medieval castle.
Oh, I love that analogy. The castle really works to visualize those pressure points.
Right, because you aren't just worried about the enemy army outside. That's just your direct rivals in the industry. That's only one force.
Just one of the 5, yeah.
If you're sitting in your castle, you also have to worry about your food suppliers. If the farmers know you're starving, they can extort you.
Exactly. That's the bargaining power of suppliers. If they hold all the cards, your profitability just vanishes. And this is actually where Walmart won its domestic strategy in the U.S. They got so massive that they completely crushed supplier power. They dictated the terms.
Yeah, we'll buy 1 million units, but you give us this price or we walk.
Exactly.
And then, you have the villagers inside the walls, your buyers. If they revolt and demand lower taxes, or in business terms, lower prices, that's the bargaining power of buyers.
Right. But it goes beyond just the immediate players, too. What if someone, invents a catapult that makes your walls completely useless?
Yes. The threat of substitutes. It's not even a rival castle. It's just a totally new technology or method that renders your defense obsolete, like streaming videos substituting physical DVD rentals.
Perfect example. Blockbuster didn't lose to another video store. They lost to a substitute.
Right. And finally, the risk of new entrants. Basically, how easy is it for another warlord to just set up a competing castle right next door? If it takes billions to build the castle, your risk is low. If all it takes is a laptop and Wi-Fi, you are under constant threat.
So true. And once a company understands those external forces attacking their castle, they have to look inward. They have to choose a lane.
The internal analysis piece.
Yeah. According to Porter's generic strategies, a firm essentially has 2 main choices to achieve that competitive advantage. It's either cost leadership or differentiation.
Right.
Cost leadership relies on standardizing everything. You're achieving massive economies of scale and being hyper efficient so you can offer the lowest price.
Well, differentiation is the exact opposite. It's customization, superior tech, heavy branding, and, charging a premium price. You're making an Apple product rather than a budget, no-name flip phone.
Exactly. You're targeting consumers who want to pay more for perceived uniqueness. And a golden rule of business strategy emerges here, which the sources highlight.
What's that?
Trying to achieve both low cost and differentiation simultaneously is almost impossible. You end up stuck in the middle and you just do neither of them well.
Because you're constantly fighting yourself.
Right. And the reason comes down to a famous principle by the historian Alfred Chandler: structure follows strategy.
Oh, yeah. You literally have to design your organization's physical and management structure around the lane you chose. I mean, you can't sustain a massive, expensive R&D department and bespoke customer service if your entire strategy is based on cost leadership.
Right. The math simply doesn't work. Your organizational design has to administer your strategy.
Okay, so we have a secure castle. We know our lane. Our firm is absolutely dominating the domestic market. What happens when corporate leadership looks at the map and decides, hey, let's expand into 10 different countries?
Well, that's where the chaos starts.
Right, because if a company takes that perfectly tuned domestic strategy and tries to just, copy and paste it across the globe, they immediately get ripped apart in this massive, globe-spanning tug of war.
Yeah, that tug of war is formally known as the Integration Responsiveness, or IR, framework. Basically, every multinational corporation faces two opposing, incredibly powerful pressures.
Okay, lay them out for us.
On one side, you have the pressure for global integration. This is the drive to make the exact same thing, the exact same way, everywhere in the world to save money and maximize efficiency.
Which you see a lot in industries where the product's function is totally divorced from culture, right? Like aerospace or consumer electronics.
Exactly. Industrial chemicals, too.
Yeah, a Boeing jet or computer memory chip doesn't need to be culturally adapted for different countries. It just needs to work. So you want absolute global integration to slash your manufacturing costs.
Right. But pulling hard in the completely opposite direction is the second pressure: local responsiveness.
A need to adapt.
Yeah, adapting your product to local tastes, cultural norms, distribution channels, even government regulations. Like we said earlier, you cannot sell the exact same menu at a fast food chain in Texas as you do in Mumbai.
The local responsiveness pressure demands that adaptation. And plotting these two pressures, so integration on one axis, responsiveness on the other, it creates this matrix with 4 distinct international strategies.
Yes, and understanding these 4 quadrants is basically the operational code for why global companies behave the way they do.
Let's break them down. First up is the international strategy, which the sources sometimes call the home replication strategy.
Right. This happens when a company faces low integration pressure and low responsiveness pressure. They essentially view international business as purely secondary.
Like an afterthought.
Exactly. They design a product for their home market and then just ship it abroad to generate a little extra revenue or maybe extend a product's life cycle. The product doesn't change.
Yeah.
The operations aren't deeply integrated globally.
It's the we made it here, you can buy it there approach. Okay, moving along the matrix. We have the multi-domestic strategy. This is low integration, but high local responsiveness.
Right. In a multi-domestic strategy, the world is viewed as a collection of completely unique, separate markets. The company sets up subsidiaries in multiple countries, and those subsidiaries act almost entirely like independent businesses.
Oh, wow, so they just do their own thing.
Pretty much. They have the autonomy to customize the products and the marketing to fit the local culture perfectly. But the downside is massive duplication.
I can imagine.
Yeah, you have a marketing team in France, a totally separate marketing team in Japan, a factory in Brazil. It is highly responsive, but incredibly inefficient on a global scale.
Okay, so what about the opposite of that, the global strategy? That's high integration, low responsiveness.
Right. Here, the corporate headquarters views the entire world as one single massive market. They standardize products, marketing, and operations to the extreme to achieve maximum efficiency.
So operations are tightly controlled centrally. They don't care about localizing the flavor or the color. They just care about making it identical everywhere to drive down costs.
Exactly. And this is exactly the trap Walmart fell into in Germany.
Oh, right.
They took their highly successful domestic cost leadership strategy and applied a global strategy framework. They centralized operations, ignored local consumer preferences, that local responsiveness piece, and tried to bully German suppliers the way they did American ones.
They just assumed low prices would trump cultural adaptation.
Yep, and they were wrong.
So that leaves the top right quadrant of the matrix. High pressure for global integration A&D, high pressure for local responsiveness. The transnational strategy.
Oh, yeah, this one.
The sources define it as standardize where feasible, adapt where appropriate. But wait, I mean, transnational sounds like the ultimate corporate cheat code. You get the cost savings of global integration A&D, the market penetration of local responsiveness. Why wouldn't every single company just choose this option? It must be a complete nightmare to organize.
It is. It's the holy grail, but it is an organizational nightmare. Returning to that golden rule we mentioned, structure follows strategy. The organizational structure required to pull off a transnational strategy dictates its extreme difficulty.
How so?
Well, if you use a global strategy, your structure is simple. Worldwide product divisions. The head of motorcycles runs motorcycles everywhere.
Yeah.
If you use a multi-domestic strategy, you use worldwide area divisions. The head of Europe runs everything in Europe.
Makes sense.
But to pull off a transnational strategy, you have to implement a global matrix structure.
Oh, man. So in a matrix structure, you're essentially telling a middle manager that they have two bosses with completely opposite goals.
Yes.
They have to report to the global head of a product who is yelling at them to cut costs and standardize. And they have to report to the regional head of a country who is yelling at them to change the product to fit the local market.
Exactly. You're forcing the employee to satisfy both simultaneously. You're forcing the organization to optimize for both efficiency and local flexibility at the exact same time.
That sounds like a recipe for a breakdown.
Historically, it was. It caused endless turf wars, massive confusion, and paralyzingly slow decision-making. However, information technology has become the great enabler here.
The software acts as the referee.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
IT platforms provide the common language, real-time financial controls, and rapid communication that allows corporate managers to finally flatten the organization.
So they don't need 50 layers of middle management arguing with each other.
Right. IT allows a company to decentralize some control to local managers so they can be responsive, while simultaneously integrating all the global data to maintain efficiency. It allows companies to actually cope with the transnational strategies inherently opposing pressures.
Okay, so the company knows what its international strategy is based on the IR framework, but how do they actually cross the border, like physically, without losing their shirt?
This brings us to the menu of market entry strategies. And the entire menu is built on a spectrum of a single crucial trade-off: risk versus control.
Risk versus control.
Yeah. As a firm seeks more control over its foreign operations, it has to commit more resources. And committing more resources lowers flexibility and drastically increases financial risk.
The NYC materials lay this out so clearly. It actually feels very much like the trajectory of modern relationships.
Oh, how so?
Think about exporting, which is the lowest control, lowest risk entry strategy. It's highly popular with small and medium enterprises. You make the goods at home and ship them over. In relationship terms, exporting is like grabbing a casual coffee.
I see.
It's low commitment.
Right.
If the market rejects your product, you just stop shipping it. You walk away with very little financial damage.
That's a great way to put it. And along with exporting in that low-risk, low-control bucket, the sources highlight global sourcing, which is essentially importing, and countertrade.
Countertrade is fascinating to me because it breaks the assumption of how global business usually works. When I picture international business, I picture massive digital wire transfers between banks. But countertrade is basically high-level bartering.
It is. It's when international transactions are made in kind, rather than cash. And it accounts for a significant chunk of world trade.
Really? Still?
Oh, yeah. It's heavily used when conventional means of payment are difficult, costly, or politically restricted. Consider large-scale government procurement or defense contracts. You have straight barter or counter-purchase agreements where a seller receives cash but is contractually obligated to spend that cash buying goods back from the buyer's country.
Oh, wow. So I'll buy your jets, but you have to buy our wheat.
Exactly. Or buyback agreements where a firm builds a facility abroad and gets paid in the actual goods that facility eventually produces. It's cumbersome, but sometimes it's literally the only way to facilitate trade in developing economies.
That is wild. Okay, so moving up the spectrum to moderate control, we hit the contractual strategies. In my relationship analogy, this is like deciding to move in together. You have licensing and franchising.
Right. Licensing is when a licensor grants the rights to intangible property, intellectual property, patents, trademarks to a foreign licensee for a specified period in return for a royalty fee.
Like a clothing manufacturer paying to use Disney characters on their shirts.
Very straightforward example.
And the pros are fast market entry and massive financial flexibility. I mean, Disney doesn't have to put up the capital to build a t-shirt factory in Brazil,
Sure.
but the lack of control introduces a completely different problem. You risk creating your own future competitor. You are actively handing over your intellectual property and manufacturing secrets to a foreign entity.
Yes, IP infringement is a huge risk there. Now, franchising is a more comprehensive contractual strategy.
Yeah.
It's usually a business format franchise where you transfer a total business method.
Not just the logo.
Right. You aren't just letting them use the logo, you are dictating the production methods, the marketing, the sales systems, the training procedures. McDonald's and 7-Eleven rely heavily on this.
It's such a brilliant way to expand quickly with low investment while leveraging the deep local knowledge of the franchisees. But again, you face the disadvantage of maintaining quality control.
Oh, definitely.
If a franchisee in one country offers a terrible, unsanitary experience, it damages your global brand equity everywhere.
Which naturally brings us to the far end of the spectrum. High control, high risk. Foreign direct investment, or FDI.
The deep end.
The deep end. This includes international joint ventures, where you partner with a local firm to create a new, jointly owned entity, and the ultimate level of commitment, the wholly owned subsidiary.
This is marriage with a joint mortgage. You own 100% of the operation in the form country. You have absolute maximum control over your tech, your operations, and your profits.
But your resource commitment is immense.
Right. If the local economy tanks or the government abruptly changes the regulatory rules, you are fully exposed. Like, going back to Walmart in Germany, they used a wholly owned subsidiary model. So they bore 100% of the massive financial losses because they couldn't just casually walk away from the infrastructure they had built.
It's a huge gamble.
Yeah.
And, we really have to look at a critical nuance from the NYCU sources regarding how these entry strategies, specifically around global sourcing and manufacturing, have evolved over the last few decades.
What do you mean?
It highlights the unintended consequences of strategic frameworks. Because Western companies originally used outsourcing and contract manufacturing to Asia as a low-risk entry strategy.
Right. They wanted to keep their capital free. Why build a factory when someone else can do it cheaper?
Exactly. They hired OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, to simply build products to exact Western specifications. A technology company in California would hand over the blueprints and say, build this as cheaply as possible.
But those Asian suppliers didn't remain static order takers?
Not at all.
The low-risk strategy of the West basically facilitated a massive transfer of knowledge.
Yeah, the Asian firms learned and evolved. They moved from OEMs to ODMs, original design manufacturers. They began designing the products themselves, and the Western firm would merely rebrand it. The capability completely shifted from basic assembly to complex engineering.
Wait, so Western companies thought they were minimizing risk by handing over the blueprints, but they were actually funding the research and development of their own future rivals.
Precisely. And the evolution continued into EMS, electronics manufacturing services. Companies like Foxconn, Pegatron, and Quanta Computer.
The giants.
Right. They do testing, global distribution, return services, sophisticated design support, and total supply chain management now. The sources note that today, more than 90% of the laptops produced worldwide are manufactured by Taiwanese ODMs and contract manufacturers.
Wait, 90%? 90% of the global supply?
Yes.
That completely inverts the power dynamic.
It does. Just look at Apple's global supply chain. They rely inextricably on Asian and specifically Taiwanese firms. To keep up with global demand, a single EMS provider like Foxconn was employing close to 1 million people in China.
Wow.
The low-risk, low-control entry strategy chosen by Western multinationals decades ago ultimately facilitated the creation of massive, highly sophisticated global powerhouses in the East.
The landscape completely shifted because of how those strategic frameworks were applied over time. And for you, listening right now, the next time you see a global brand stumble in your neighborhood, or you pick up a gadget that was designed in California but engineered and manufactured by a Taiwanese ODM, you aren't just looking at random business events anymore.
Right. You now possess the strategic frameworks to understand the boardroom decisions behind them. A company must master its domestic strategy through frameworks like Porter's 5 Forces, really securing their castle first.
Then they have to navigate the intense global tug-of-war of integration versus responsiveness.
And finally, They must choose an entry strategy on that sliding scale that perfectly balances their tolerance for financial risk with their operational need for control.
It is a delicate, high-stakes game, and it leaves us with a final thought to ponder. As global technology and IT continue to make the world smaller, flattening corporate structures and allowing media to force consumer tastes to converge globally, will the intense pressure for local responsiveness eventually just vanish?
That's a great question.
Right. Will we eventually live in a world where everyone simply wants the exact same globally integrated products? Or in a market flooded with identical standardized goods, will mastering those distinct hyper-local cultural differences become the single most valuable competitive advantage a company can possibly hold? Something to consider the next time you step into your local convenience store. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.